The Boise State Broncos were super solid in the second half of last season. A team that had a really slow start ended up turning it around and ultimately winning the Mountain West Championship, and they're one of those group of 5 teams that a lot of people think could contend for the college football playoff. A large reason why Boise State had the turnaround they did was due to an elite running game. They were one of PFF's highest graded run games in the entire country, and they had an elite tandem with George Halani as well as superstar running back Ashton Jeanty. Jeanty is a player who has become an early favorite in the NFL draft community, and many people think he can be a number 1 running back at the next level. How high will he end up being taken in next year's class? That is what we will be going over in today's video. But hey guys, if you guys are new to the channel, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon. For $5 a month, you guys will get exclusive access to my draft guide, big board, as well as exclusive prospect interviews. It is some of my best work up to this point, and I'm very proud of it, and I think you guys are really going to like it. Typically, I would be a bit more active in responding to the comments here, but don't worry, I'll respond to them. Today is my wedding day, however, so obviously priorities, but just want to give you guys a bit of a heads up there on what's going on a little bit personally, and without further ado, let's take a closer look at Ashton Jeanty. Jeanty graded off the charts according to PFF. He had a 94.9 offensive grade and a 94.6 rushing grade last season for Boise State. He was incredibly productive in a rotation. He finished the season with 1,344 yards and 14 touchdowns on only 217 carries. He was incredibly dynamic and explosive for Boise State, and now, with George Halani headed to the NFL, Jeanty is expected to have a massive impact in a run-happy Boise State team, and he showed out in Week 1. In his first game against Georgia Southern, Jeanty broke the single-game rushing yards and rushing touchdown record for a Boise State player. He finished with 20 carries for 267 yards and 6 touchdowns, and he is an early Heisman candidate after Week 1. Jeanty was one of the most impressive receiving backs in the country last year, and quite frankly, one of the best I have studied. Boise State used him a lot in motion, and found creative ways to get him the ball, and he always seemed to produce. In 2023, Jeanty had 44 receptions for 578 yards. His hands in the receiving game are remarkable, and they use him a lot as a route runner out of the backfield as well. He's not strictly a screen type of receiver. They lined him up some in the slot, they lined him up in motion, and they found ways to utilize his skill set. He had 0 drops on the season, and he has some really nice shiftiness as a route runner, which I love to see. Jeanty has an uncanny ability to make guys miss. He is incredibly light on his feet, and he has a number of jump cuts and jukes he can break out at any time. If he makes a guy miss, he has incredible breakaway speed to turn it into a massive play. He had 82 forced missed tackles, and on top of that, he had 37 rushes of 10 or more yards last year. He was incredibly dynamic as a rusher for Boise State, and he has some remarkable upside. The other area I love about Jeanty is his contact balance. He had 981 yards after contact last season, and that totaled 4.51 yards per carry. He is really difficult to tackle because he is so shifty and light on his feet. He's not a power back by any means, but he has incredible strength to fight through tackles and turn small runs into some big plays. We saw it last week where he had a beautiful stiff arm on one of the Georgia Southern defenders, and he's a running back that doesn't have a lot of mileage on his legs. Boise State does a very nice job of not overusing him, and he only has 373 carries up to this point. To put that into perspective, Ollie Gordon had 2/3 of that just last season. Boise State does a really good job of managing his workload, and he doesn't have a lot of mileage heading into the league. Jeanty has the ability to run the football both inside and outside. However, I think his vision is a bit inconsistent. I think he gets a little bit too bounce happy at times, and he had the tendency to bounce the football back to the outside. I think his vision needs to improve a little bit, and that's not to say he has bad vision, but I don't think it is necessarily elite. Now, in his defense, he is a bit of a smaller back. He's 5'8", 206 pounds, and he's not necessarily a bruising type of player. So it makes sense why he would be more comfortable bouncing it to the outside, but I'd just like to see his vision improve ever so slightly. The big concern around Jeanty is ball security. He had a bit of a fumbling problem that definitely needs to get cleaned up. He had 5 fumbles in 2023, and that's just a number that will not fly in the NFL. He has to do a better job of cleaning up that area and not putting the ball on the ground. Ashton Jeanty is a dynamic player. I love what he can provide in both the run and passing game, and he's an above average pass blocker at the position as well. He's a very well-rounded back, and after his elite showing in week 1, he has jumped into my running back 1 spot. He is so well-rounded, so explosive, and has some elite upside. His weaknesses are things that I think are going to be okay at the next level, and he's a top 10 player in the draft class for me. I think Ashton Jeanty is the ideal 3-down back in the NFL. He can block, he can catch passes out of the backfield, he's a great route runner, and he's a great runner, period. He's perfect in a Kyle Shanahan type of offense that most of the league is running at this point. A player who can be used in all phases of the game, has elite versatility, and he can be a very similar type of impact to a Christian McCaffrey or Bijan Robinson. My player comparison for Ashton Jeanty is Minnesota Vikings running back Aaron Jones. They both are players who have very similar skill sets. Both of them have elite receiving potential. Jones was used in multiple ways over the last few years, whether it be on screens, in the slot, or however Green Bay wanted to line him up. He had versatility, but he's a great runner who has physicality, can play inside and outside, and Jones is one of the more versatile backs in the NFL, and I think Jeanty provides that same skill set with very similar measurables. Ashton Jeanty is a 3-down back. He can do everything you look for at the running back position, and he has some elite upside. I am super intrigued to see what type of season he has as a number 1 back, and ultimately, I believe that Ashton Jeanty will be a first-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft.